Welcome to the Week 2 Go-To session. This is the second of such sessions we're holding this month. Actually, this is our first one because remember last week I had an illness issue. So the Week 1 lecture was actually a previous lecture from a previous month. Do make sure that you're watching the lectures. So to the people who are here in attendance, but also the people who are watching, please make sure that you're watching the lectures each week, because this is not the sort of class where you can sort of complete assignments correctly if you're not attending or watching lectures. As explained in Week 1, we are working toward an ad analysis essay. We are working one step at a time toward that essay. So in Week 1, you completed a brainstorming worksheet, which I'm in the middle of grading right now. And this week, the major assignment is an outline, which will be most of the focus of this week's lecture. Okay. But yeah, it's difficult to understand the concept of ad analysis or how to complete last week's worksheet or this week's outline correctly if one isn't watching the lecture. So just a heads up. Second, let me make a quick note. I did hear a lot of comments about how people had some issues watching the first lecture. So this lecture, even though it's being recorded, I'm also going to upload it to YouTube after the session is over. So the lecture will be embedded in the archive section for Week 2, but there will also be a link to the YouTube version. Okay, so if anybody has issues, I think the major issue was the video was stopping and starting. People couldn't watch it solidly because it kept pausing. You will have an alternate link that will take you to YouTube, and that issue should not happen. Okay, so welcome to Week 2. Again, I'm in the middle of grading worksheets. I hope to have them graded tonight or at least overnight, so people will have tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, all day Sunday to work on the outline. And if we take a real quick look, here's the, you probably see something similar to this, but here's the week by week breakdown of activities. So we're right here in Week 2, organizing your ideas. Okay, hopefully you've already read through the overview for this week. Of course, here is the lecture archive where the lecture I'm holding right now will be placed. There are, as usual, 2 McGraw-Hill activities to keep up with: the Smart Book readings and those practice questions, and then the interactive Achieve module. Most of you probably realize this already, but in Week 1, the 2 McGraw-Hill activities both contained a walkthrough video. They're the same video, so you only have to watch one of them, but I walk you through the steps of what you need to do once you get to McGraw-Hill. Okay, so if there was any confusion about what you're supposed to do with the Smart Book readings and those associated practice questions, as well as the Achieve modules, and if you haven't already, just go back to Week 1 and watch the short walkthrough video. Okay, I even answer sample questions to show you what to do. Okay, but here we are in Week 2, and the major activity for this week, where 10% of your grade, is this guy here, Step 2, organizing. So let me open this up real quickly. As usual, you can read through all of this on your own. I should note that, and this was included for the worksheet activity as well, it's contained in the instructions. I believe every major activity repeats this link here. There's a short video called Pathos, Ethos, Logos, and Advertising. Because part of today's session, I'm also going to talk about research. You have to have 3 sources for your ad analysis essay. This does not, the ad itself, although it should be listed on the references page, does not count as one of your 3 sources. You need 3 additional sources. However, this video can count as one of those sources. Okay, so watch the video, find hopefully something interesting in it that connects in some way to your ad. I will say, though, please do something more interesting with this video than just giving a dictionary definition of what pathos means. You could do that on your own, right? You could do that in your own words without having to cite something. I say that because I do see that a lot. People don't really choose something specific and interesting from the video. They just say pathos is the appeal to emotion, and then go on to explain how their chosen ad creates an emotional connection, right? But that's not really research, giving a definition of the word pathos. Plus, you should be able to find something in the video that is more specific and concrete that you can either quote from or paraphrase. We'll talk about that in today's session, how to use research. But as I scroll down here, you can see you have a whole mess of stuff here. Okay, you have a rubric. You have this for every activity, so you can see what the grading requirements are. You have a sample outline. In Week 1, we looked at a Jeep ad, okay, and talked about it brainstormed ideas. We basically used the Jeep ad as well as a Diet Coke ad to practice about what sorts of things you should look for in your chosen ad. And then you have the outline template, okay? And as you can see here, I put in parentheses, use this to complete the assignment. Now, I already have these documents open. So let me, for example, here is the blank. Let me make this a little bit bigger if I can. Stretch this out, stretch this out. This is the blank template, and this is what you're going to fill out, okay? So one of the awesome things here is that even though most people are familiar with an outline, what an outline is, yeah, sometimes students can struggle with creating an outline from scratch, right? They know it has something to do with Roman numerals and letters, but yeah, we've provided the template for you. So you essentially have to fill this out. Be careful though, okay? This is not like the week 1 assignment. Week 1, you had a brainstorming worksheet. This is not a brainstorming worksheet. In fact, this isn't a worksheet. Yes, it's a template, but it's not a worksheet. I say that because occasionally I see maybe a handful of students every month out of a group of 25 who fill out this outline kind of randomly. And that's not how an outline is supposed to be completed. An outline, you may know, is a blueprint, okay? It's a plan for your essay. In fact, it is a paragraph by paragraph plan of your essay. And that's what this blank template is. Every Roman numeral here represents a separate paragraph in your paper. Now, we're going to come back to this in just a second, but I'm going to switch to the lecture notes, okay, to fill in some of these ideas. So let's take a look. Yep, welcome to week 2. We're taking the next step toward writing the essay. This is just a repetition of the image we saw in week 1, a reminder that every week in this class is devoted to a separate stage in the writing process. So week 1 was here, brainstorming ideas. This week we're kind of here, okay, both in the research and investigate area and the organizing of information area. I'm going to give you detailed feedback in response to your worksheet. The entire worksheet is of interest to me, of course, but perhaps the most important question on that entire worksheet was the thesis. Okay, you have to have a solid thesis before you can move forward. As I explained in the week 1 lecture, your thesis should be stating your 3 aspects or elements that you spotted in the ad that you're going to concentrate on. So, for example, with the Jeep ad, I identified the ad's use of color, the ad's use of imagery, and the ad's use of language, specifically in the tagline. Those were the 3 things that I thought were interesting, worthy of analysis, and so they get listed in my thesis. And later we'll look at a completed outline using the Jeep example, and I'll show you that thesis again, even though we, I believe, looked at it in week 1. So yeah, you have to have a thesis that is doing much the same thing. So let's say you chose the Call of Duty ad. Your Call of Duty thesis should list the 3 specific things that you noticed in the ad that you are going to focus on in your essay, okay? Because those 3 things listed in the thesis then become the basis for your 3 body paragraphs. But anyway, here's the writing process as a whole, and we're right here, okay? Researching and organizing. Now, I believe I mentioned this in week 1, but because it was from a previous month, maybe I'm repeating this information, but your intended audience is the general reader. And actually, let me pull away from this presentation for just a second, because I do want to give what hopefully is a pretty useful tip. I'm going to open up a blank Microsoft Word document real quickly. When I say that your audience is the general reader, what I mean is that you should be able to read over your work, and it should make complete sense to the general reader, okay? So, for example, I should be able to pull a stranger off the street, and they should be able to follow your eventual essay from start to finish without stumbling. And yet what I sometimes see is that, and by the way, it's understandable. So when I say this, I'm not criticizing, okay? I can do these things too. Of course, I notice them when I read over my writing and I fix these things. But for instance, I see sometimes students who aren't thinking about the general reader. They're thinking too much in their own heads. So I'll see an essay that begins like this. I have a new computer and it is so sensitive, the keyboard. In this ad, the man is on his first day of work. Like that's the opening line to an essay. And this is not reader friendly. Why? Because then I have to be the mean instructor. And when I grade, I have to say, what ad? What man? What are you talking about? I know what the student is talking about. He or she is referring to the McDonald's ad. Okay. But this language, do you understand what I'm trying to say in terms of that this would not make sense to the general reader? Just to begin an essay, in this ad, the man is on his first day at work, right? Now, an opening sentence that takes the general reader into account would begin perhaps like this. In the McDonald's, ad, first day, that's the title of the ad, Andy, a young millennial, feels overwhelmed on his, I'm going to change language, initial day of employment. That's kind of a not the most natural wording, but I'm trying to avoid repeating the words first day. Okay? Can you see the difference between the two? The first one is very vague. It assumes that the reader already knows what you're talking about. In this ad. Okay, what ad? The man. What man? And by the way, I should note, it doesn't matter if the title of your essay is, for example, McDonald's Ad Analysis Essay. The title cannot stand in for solid writing. Okay? Or think about it like this. You have to hold the general reader's hand. It doesn't mean you have to treat your readers like babies and explain everything. You don't have to tell them that McDonald's is a fast food restaurant, but you do fill in these generalities with specifics. Okay? Does this make sense, by the way, people? Can you see the difference between these two sentences? When I say that this first sentence is general and vague, and that the second one is more specific? Okay, good. Steven says yes. Because yes, I'm going to push more towards specificity, like this. And later when we take another look at the Jeep ad, you'll see that I am very careful in always being specific. A good litmus test, by the way, is to read your work as if you're not you. Pretend that you're not you. So we have Gaisha, Jonathan, and Stephen with us tonight. Pretend you are not Jonathan, Stephen, or Gaisha. Okay? When you read your work, pretend you are a perfect stranger who's pulled in off the street. Imagine the paper you're reading is a paper that was left behind on a cafeteria table or in the library, right? And you're looking at it the very first time. You should be able to read that essay from start to finish without stumbling, without being confused, without things needing to be more fully explained. Okay, that, by the way, is the hallmark of good writing. No matter what that writing is. I may not understand physics, but even if I pick up an article published in a physics journal, I might not understand the math, but I'll understand the overall shape of the article and the writing, right? So yeah, your audience then is the general reader. Okay, so we are working toward an essay, right? Step by step. So the first week, you had to choose an ad, and you had to complete a brainstorming activity, that week 1 worksheet. This week, you're going to use my feedback. So please wait for my feedback before you begin work on the outline. And you're going to start planning paragraph by paragraph what your essay is going to say. Okay? Now, obviously, what is an essay? An essay can be anything, technically. A video could be an essay. But for this class, it is, of course, in the more traditional sense, a short piece of nonfiction writing on a particular subject. I think most of you know that. The essay for this class, by the way, we don't have a page count. Instead, we have a word count. Your essay should be between 700 and 1,400 words. I don't think I've ever seen a student produce a 1,400 word essay. That's very, very long. I think my Jeep essay is in the neighborhood of 850 words, or maybe it's closer to 900. It's on the shorter side, and yet it's, I think, about 3.5 full pages. So, yeah, you shouldn't have a problem producing something between 700 and 1,400 words. Now, we're going to talk just a little bit about essay structure, and I apologize if you already know this, but not all students do. Plus, this is pretty important because you have to understand the basic structure of an essay in order to complete the outline template correctly. So an essay has three basic parts. It has an introduction, right? This is the first paragraph of the essay. The introduction is general. This is not the place where you immediately start diving into analysis. No, it's setting up the rest of the essay. And because it's setting up the essay, yes, it stays a bit more general. And it ends with your thesis statement. Okay? The thesis statement, once you have a solid one, will be the final sentence in your introduction, because that thesis is leading into the body of your paper. This is where the support appears. Okay? And it's here, this is where analysis will occur. So once you have your chosen ad, and once you've identified three specific things in the ad that you wish to examine more closely, those three elements, those aspects of the ad are going to become the basis of your body paragraphs. Okay, we're aiming for a 5-paragraph essay. So there's an introduction, 3 body paragraphs where you focus on each of those 3 things you've identified one at a time, and finally a conclusion. A conclusion paragraph is in many ways sort of the mirror opposite of the introduction, although opposite isn't quite the right word. It echoes the introduction. Okay, the conclusion is also a general paragraph, but whereas the introduction is a general setup for the meat of the essay, the conclusion is a general paragraph that closes things down. Here's more specific information on what each part of the essay includes. So as I mentioned, the introduction sets the stage for the rest of the essay, and it ends with your thesis statement. Then comes the body, the middle of your paper. So we're talking 3 paragraphs. Okay, and this is where your analysis occurs. This is where you develop your ideas, include your thoughts. This is where your research will probably appear. And the body of your paper works in support of your thesis. Okay, so think of the thesis as like a roadmap for the paper. If your thesis promises a discussion of A, B, and C, then your paper will deliver, 1 paragraph at a time, a close examination of A, B, and C. Okay, so body works in support of thesis. And finally, your conclusion. This is where you remind your readers of your thesis, basically the ground you've covered. And yeah, you find a kind of a satisfying final note on which to end the essay. And we'll look at these concepts a bit more concretely when we return to the sample outline and sample essay. In week 1, we talked about thesis statements. Okay, and I gave some examples for both the Jeep ad and the Diet Coke ad. The worksheet template also had some thesis examples. I'm going to skip this slide because the truth is, yes, there are different ways you can organize information within a paragraph, but you're probably not going to be using most of these. Okay, so paragraph structure. I have no idea why the H got bumped down there. Again, I have a new laptop, so maybe that's part of the issue. So when we talk about paragraph structure, I'm mostly referring to those middle paragraphs, okay? The body paragraphs where your analysis actually occurs. A paragraph should begin with a strong topic sentence. A topic sentence is sort of like a thesis for that individual paragraph. And actually, let me get away from this for just a second. And let me bring up the examples. I need to open up one more document. Do I have my Jeep essay? No, I have the Jeep ad. Give me 2 seconds. Next week in week 3, you actually will have access to 2 sample ad analysis essays, including my Jeep essay and also a previous student paper on the Diet Coke ad that we looked at in week 1. Anyway, here's the Jeep essay. Again, this won't open up until Sunday at midnight, but I need this essay now. So let me reinforce some of the concepts we've just discussed. Okay, and I know that I also showed some of this in week 1, so bear with me. But yeah, here's the full ad analysis essay that I wrote. So even though, yeah, it says Jane, a student, that's me. But here's my introduction. Okay? And notice that, yes, this paragraph stays general. I'm not analyzing the ad yet. I just find what I think is an interesting way to begin by riffing on the very notion of Jeep, right? The Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself with its reputation for ruggedness, independence, and adventure. Then I found a nifty quote that reinforces that, yes, Jeep is quite popular. It's the most copied brand of American vehicles. And then I talk a little bit about what one typically thinks of when they hear the word Jeep. Okay, that one can easily picture a driver behind the wheel of a Jeep, downshifting around a mountain bend, kicking up dust through the sun-baked Australian outback, zooming past zebras grazing the Serengeti. So yes, it's all general. I'm talking about Jeep in general. Then I do briefly describe the ad, because again, the general reader may not be familiar with the Jeep ad. So I take just a few sentences to describe the ad. Okay, that it's a print poster, and it contains a reversible image in the center, set against a beige background. The image is reversible. Looked at one way, it looks like a giraffe. Looked at another way, it's a penguin. Remember, we looked at this ad in week 1. And finally, the introduction ends with my thesis. Through the use of simple color, playful imagery, and a double meaning tagline. So those are my 3 points, okay? I'm telling the readers that these are the 3 things I'm going to explore in my essay. And even if a reader isn't consciously thinking about thesis statements, trust me, when the reader reads this sentence, she knows that this is set up, okay? She knows that this is what is going to be discussed in the essay. Color, imagery, tagline. Okay, so your thesis has to do something similar, whether it's the Call of Duty ad, the McDonald's ad, the Allstate ad, whatever. Hopefully you've identified 3 very specific things as well. By the way, part of my job when grading the worksheets is to help you. So if your thesis isn't completely there yet, don't worry. I will give you like 6, 7 possible ideas to consider. Okay, and then you can choose 3 of them. I'm fine with that because ultimately you have to write the paper. So if I present a list of 6 or 7 ideas and you choose the 3 that, I mean, hopefully you look at the list of ideas and think, oh, wow, yeah, now that I see the full range of things that are going on in this ad, I could easily write about these 3. So again, maybe your thesis is great already, and that would be awesome. But if you do need help, I would read the feedback that I'm going to write to you, look at the list of ideas that I provide, and yes, choose 3 that you feel comfortable writing about. 3 things that make you think, oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. Now I see it. Now that my instructor has kind of listed these things, sure, I could write about these 3 things. And yes, they have to be listed in your thesis statement. Because what happens is, now that I've listed these 3 things, they become the focus of my body paragraphs. So here's my topic sentence for the first body paragraph. The ad is an exercise in simplicity, especially in its use of color. Okay? I just said that the topic sentence is like a thesis for the paragraph. Okay? This sentence signals to the reader this paragraph is going to be about the ad's use of color. And then yes, the rest of the paragraph is entirely about the ad's use of color. Okay? I describe things for the reader because again, the reader doesn't know. So I explain that the ad has a simple background of camel mesh and that the ad's beige background brings to mind fabric or textiles, a burlap sack, canvas tent, maybe khaki clothing. The color also suggests environment, dusty paths, windswept dunes. Okay? Remember we talked about this in week 1, that it's no accident that the Jeep ad uses this color and background scheme. Then I include research. Okay. And most importantly, I explain. Okay. Analysis isn't just pointing things out. The color in the ad is X. The music used in the Call of Duty ad is Y. No, analysis means pushing past that and explaining, okay, why does the ad use this color? Why does the ad use this song? Okay. Why does the Call of Duty ad use the Rolling Stones song, Gimme Shelter? Answering those why questions leads to analysis. So, for example, here, the color choice is no accident, for it reinforces Jeep's outdoorsy image. Okay? And then I return to this. The color scheme works to promote the rugged off-roading image that the ads that the ad campaign's creators clearly desire. And I'm not going to read the entire essay, so I will speed things up. But the rest of the paragraphs follow suit. Okay, here's my topic sentence for the next one, which is my next thesis point. Imagery. Okay, the Jeep's image is also reinforced through the ad's main conceit or trick, which is playful use of imagery. And then the entire paragraph is about the ad's use of imagery. Why does it use animal imagery? And then my third paragraph focuses on my third thesis point, which is the ad's tagline. Okay, so this entire paragraph is about the ad's tagline, not just explaining what the tagline means, but why the tagline is important. Okay, and then here's my conclusion, where I echo my thesis. Okay, so the Jeep ad is deceptively simple. The ad's basic elements, color, imagery, wording, produce strong results. Okay, that's just a rewording of my thesis using different language. And then, a few lines that bring the essay to a satisfying close. Okay, so this is what you're ultimately going to do with your chosen ad. 5 paragraphs. A general introduction. Let me go back to our keynote presentation. A general introduction. 3 body paragraphs where your 3 thesis points get discussed one by one, and then a conclusion. And here's just further information about what I just discussed. Yes, your body paragraph should begin with a topic statement, because that lets the reader know what the paragraph is about. The rest of the paragraph is where you will explain things, okay? Where you'll provide research, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I like to call this final thing kind of like a cincher statement. If you look at the Jeep essay, every paragraph ends with a kind of reinforcement of why does the ad use this color? Why does the ad use animal imagery? Okay, so we end the paragraph with kind of a strong final point. We are going to talk about research in just a moment, but let me again get away from this for just a second, because I do want to show you the outline template. I'm trying to get out of this. Hold on. Come on. There we go. Okay, where's my... Here, we'll put this away. I can get rid of this. Okay, so here's the blank outline template. Okay, this is what you're going to be filling out. Now, keep in mind what we've just discussed, the 5 paragraphs that you need in your essay. This outline, again, it's not a worksheet. It's not like the week 1 assignment. So please do not fill out the outline template randomly. Every Roman numeral in this outline represents a separate paragraph in your essay. So let's look at Roman numeral 1. This is your introduction paragraph. It asks for a 1-sentence hook, okay, enticing your audience to read more. In other words, I'm asking for a 1-sentence preview of how you think your essay will begin. And if we look at the completed outline, which I have somewhere here. Here we go. Here's a completed outline. And you have this, okay? You have a completed outline. So here's my 1-sentence hook, okay? Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself, blah, blah, blah. That's all I need, okay? 1 sentence to give me an idea of how you think you're going to begin your paper. That's it, just 1 sentence. Now, true, come essay time, you'll have to develop things beyond a single sentence. But for the outline, no, I just need a single sentence preview of how you think your paper will begin. The next thing that the outline template asks for is a short description of the ad, just 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, so this is not like the worksheet where one of the prompts asks you for a detailed description of the ad as if you were describing it to someone who's never seen it before. That's not this. Okay, this is just a short description of the ad, because as we just saw in the full Jeep essay, yes, I spent a couple sentences in the introduction generally describing the ad because the reader might not be familiar with it. And finally, your introduction ends with a thesis. Okay, so this is where your thesis goes. And again, if we look at the completed outline, that's what I do here. Okay, there's my short description of the GPAD. If you want to use 4 sentences, that's fine. But the important thing is just to keep it brief, okay? And there's my thesis. Through the use of simple color, playful imagery, and a double meaning tagline, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is the basic foundation of your introduction paragraph. Then comes Roman numeral 2. This is your first body paragraph. And it begins by asking for a topic sentence, identifying your first thesis point. Okay, and that goes here, by the way. It doesn't go here. Sometimes students skip that. It goes right here. And then it asks for 2 main points you plan to make in support of that topic sentence. So that's what I do here in the completed version. Here's my topic sentence, identifying my first thesis point, the ad's use of color. Here's 1 point that I plan to make in support of the ad's use of color. Here's a second point I plan to make. And then the outline template asks for research. Okay, this is where research comes into play. So yes, you'll have to spend some time over the next few days doing some research. Because it asks for a sentence incorporating a research quote, including an APA InText citation. We will talk about all this, so don't panic. So yeah, I found some nifty quotations about color. I found a pretty neat one about earth tones and how they are usually reserved for backgrounds. That was nifty because in the GPAD, indeed, it does use an earth tone, and it is used for the background of the ad. And I found another quotation about how neutral colors and brown colors are the epitome of nature. That's also useful because the GPAD is working powerfully with these notions of the outdoors, right? Through the animal imagery, through the choice of color. Okay. And finally, the section asks for just a sentence or two from you explaining how the research is relevant. Okay. And then you repeat. Roman numeral 3 asks for the same thing. What's your next topic sentence? This is where you identify your second thesis point. For the GPAD, it's the ad's use of imagery. Here's 1 point I plan to make about the ad's use of imagery. Here's a second point I plan to make about the ad's use of imagery. Here's research I found that works to support my comments about imagery. And here's my short explanation about why this research is relevant. And then you repeat it for the final body paragraph, where you present your third topic sentence, identifying your third thesis point, which for me was the ad's tagline. Okay, tagline. 1 point I plan to make in the paragraph about tagline. A second point I plan to make. Relevant research. A brief explanation of why this research is relevant. And then finally, the last paragraph, Roman numeral 5, the conclusion, which asks you to rephrase your thesis statement, okay? Reword it. And then write 2 or 3 sentences that anticipate how you think maybe your essay will come to a close, okay? Here's the thing. If you can fill out this template successfully, then you'll be in great shape for the essay. Because, yeah, you have the essay, the foundation, the skeleton already in place, okay? Yes, you'll obviously, the information here is not an essay, but you have all the pieces. And then it's just a matter of filling things in. But you'll have everything: the structure of the essay, the thesis for your essay, the topic sentences for each of your 3 body paragraphs, the main points you plan to make in those paragraphs, the research that supports what you're saying in those paragraphs. In other words, you have, I'd say, almost half the paper kind of written for you. But again, you have to take time and fill out the outline template with some care. Okay. By the way, if anybody has questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I know this is a lot of information. This is probably the hardest session because I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. The basics of essay structure, the explanation of how thesis sets up essay structure, this explanation of how to fill out the outline template. Okay. So if you do have to watch the session over again, I encourage you to, even though I know it's not the most thrilling. information. But I do want you to do well, because honestly, if you can complete the outline successfully, you're in great shape. But I do see, some slips, which is why I cautioned at the beginning, don't confuse it with the week 1 assignment. This is not another worksheet to be filled out randomly. What you see on the outline template are not prompts to be answered in isolation. No, again, every Roman numeral in this outline represents a different paragraph in your essay. Okay. Does this make sense, people? I know I don't want to belabor things. Some of you are probably thinking, why doesn't he move on? I get it already. But are we all mostly clear, or are people a little bit confused? AJ says, Professor, it's a little difficult to move forward without feedback. Yes, AJ, I know. I'm working on that tonight. So tonight or overnight, you will receive feedback on your worksheet. You're absolutely right. And I'm not sure when you entered the room, but not only will you get feedback, but you'll get a list of possible ideas to consider if you, for example, struggled a bit with coming up with a strong thesis statement. Okay, so yes, I'm aware. I'm going to be burning the midnight oil tonight to get those worksheets graded. At the very least, you should wake up tomorrow morning with a grade and feedback on your worksheet. So that will give you all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and all day Sunday to work on that. AJ says that'll be helpful, and he's working with the Writing Center. Okay, awesome. Yeah, don't forget about the Writing Center. I'm going to go ahead and type that into the chat. And for the people watching this session, because you can't see the control panel or the chat window that I'm typing in, it's just Writing Center, one word, Writing Center, at fullsail.com. Okay. If you email writingcenter@fullsail.com, you do need 24 hours notice. But yes, you can have a one-on-one session with a tutor. If you're here in Orlando, it can be face-to-face. More often than not, it's online using this same technology, GoToTraining. Okay. And yeah, it's helpful because a lot of the tutors, not all of them, but many of them are English instructors. I'm not working in the Writing Center this month, but other months I do. They will be very familiar with this ad analysis assignment. So that's another positive, is you don't have to worry about your potential tutor not being familiar with your assignments. They'll be super familiar and should be able to give you some direction. Okay. Let's talk about research, because as I've noted, each body paragraph here asks for research. Okay. So yes, and I know this class moves fast. Okay. And yeah, you'll have to do some research for Sunday. And research takes time. For instance, here's my references page. There are 4 sources listed. And actually, in the final version of the essay, I actually added a few more. So here's the full essay. Again, you'll have access to this starting Sunday night. So the issue is I don't want people getting too confused with all the different examples. So next week, because it will be time to work on the essay draft, you will have 2 essay examples to look at, finished examples of ad analysis essays. This is one of them. And as you can see in the finished version, I have 6 references. You only need 3, but I have 6. And I will say in advance, it took me time. The reason I created all these examples, the sample outline, this sample essay, was twofold. One, I thought students needed examples. Students can benefit from seeing actual essays, right? Ad analysis essays, both my version and a past student's version. Second, I think it's always beneficial for an instructor to do the same work that he or she asks the students to do, because it reminds you of just, these assignments aren't easy. I thought I would bang this out. I thought I would just sit down in an hour or 2, write my ad analysis essay and move on. And it took me a long time, both the writing of it and doing research. These 6 sources took me hours to find. I had to look through several websites to find just the right quotations that fit my paragraph on the ad's use of color. Okay. You need 3 sources. For those of you who came in late, where is it? I see. I'm in the essay assignment. But in both the worksheet assignment and the outline assignment for this week, you have links to this video, Pathos, Ethos, Logos, and Advertising. This can be one of your 3 sources, okay? So that will make things easier, because in truth, you only need to find 2 sources if you decide to use this one. One of the sources should come from the Full Sail Library database. The other one can come from online, okay? It should be a quality source, so Wikipedia doesn't count. Although you might go to Wikipedia and then scan down to the references section, see if there's anything good there. But no, Wikipedia, online dictionaries, IMDb, all these biography.com, all these very encyclopedia type sources are not research. You need to find articles, okay? Or they could be website articles, but they should be solid information that's helping you find support for your ideas, okay? So your paper isn't just the world according to Jonathan, or the world according to Gaisha, or the world according to AJ. It's a convention, again, in good writing, that you fold in ideas from other people. Anyway, I'm on the Full Sail Connect page, and if you look on the left-hand side and click on Library, this will take you to the Full Sail Library. And if you scroll down to Research Databases, I recommend beginning with EBSCOhost. EBSCOhost is actually an umbrella term that includes lots of different databases, including Academic Search Complete, Business Search Complete, and others. You also have what was formerly called LexisNexis. It is now called, where is it? Nexus Uni. Okay, they changed the name. LexisNexis tends to search more like newspapers, more general, day-to-day, accessible type publications, especially newspapers. EBSCOhost tends to search more journals. Okay, but let's begin with EBSCOhost. Just select all, so you can search all these databases at once. Click Continue. Now, let me give a warning in advance. I'm going to put in search terms that I already know are going to produce a result. It's not going to be this easy when you do research. When you do research, you're going to have to try a variety of different search terms. You might not get great results if you just put in your thesis points and the name of your ad. Again, you might need to vary your search terms. Another trick I like to use is what I call reverse engineering. In other words, you might already know a point you want to make in your paragraph. Let's say you're writing about, the Altoids ad. Okay, that's a print ad. And that ad's theme of nostalgia, okay, because that ad works powerfully with the idea of nostalgia, which is a longing for the past. Okay, let's say you already know what you want to say regarding nostalgia. Then search for that. Okay, in other words, search for the results you already expect to find. Does that make sense? Instead of beginning from scratch. Of course, you have to already kind of know what you're looking for in order to reverse engineer. But yeah, there are various ways. But you'll have to vary your search terms. Again, maybe anticipate what you already know you're going to say and then search for that. But I'm going to type in Call of Duty Gimme Shelter, because that's the name of the song used in the ad. And a lot of people write about the ad's use of music, because, not to help out the Call of Duty people, but yeah, the ad does not use the Rolling Stones song Gimme Shelter by accident. Okay? It doesn't use that song just because it's upbeat or because it's a well-known song. That's part of it, sure. No, it specifically uses that song because thematically it fits the game, if you're familiar with the game, Call of Duty Black Ops, and the ad, okay? In other words, lots of songs could have been chosen because they're upbeat or energetic or because they're well-known. Hundreds, thousands of songs could have been chosen. But no, they specifically wanted this song by the Rolling Stones. Why? AJ says it feels like the Guardians for Galaxy intro. Yeah, somewhat. But again, if you think about Guardians of Galaxy, the songs are a lot of fun. They typically use songs from like the 1970s, right? But those songs are chosen for feel. And I'm not saying that the Call of Duty ad doesn't use a song in part because of its feel, but there's more to it. And if you're frustrated because I'm not explaining what that is, it's because I want you to discover. Okay, I want you to figure out why the song Gimme Shelter is used. So one of the things to research would be, the song. Okay, read up about the song. I know that there are quotations out there from Mick Jagger, maybe even Keith Richards, about the song and its meaning. And hopefully, once you find out that information, a light bulb should go off and you'll be like, oh my God, yes, now I see. The song does absolutely fit the world of the game and the ad. But okay, so Call of Duty plus Gimme Shelter resulted in this article here by Ann Donahue in Billboard Magazine. I'll be using this article next week because next week is going to be a session completely devoted to APA format, and I'm going to come back and use this ad. Here's the article itself. You can see it's quite short. And you have to read through, obviously, the article, or at least skim through it to see if it's going to be of any use. Most of this, it seems like it's not terribly useful, but there is something here. According to Activision Vice President of Music Affairs, Tim Riley, scoring Gimme Shelter for the ad, scoring meaning obtaining permission, was no easy task. Why? Because as it goes unexplained, this Mr. Riley had to fly to New York to get permission from the rights holders of the song. He also, for the first time in Activision history, allowed another company to make edits to the ad itself. Okay? And to get approval from the band members. Now, this isn't direct commentary on why the song is meaningful or why the song was chosen for the ad, but it is, I would argue, maybe somewhat relevant because it is evidence that, okay, this guy flew to New York for this specific song, right? There must be something important about that song because why else would he be so obsessed with why not I don't know, a Sam Smith song? Why not a okay, maybe that wouldn't fit the world of Call of Duty, but you know what I mean. Why not a Metallica song? Why not any number of songs that could have been used? Clearly, he wanted this song. So, yeah, maybe this information here would be useful. But for the outline assignment, I'm asking you to find 3 sources. Again, the video on pathos, ethos, and logos and advertising could be one of those 3 sources. Because you're going to need them for your outline. Because each body paragraph in the outline, remember, ask for research. Okay, sentence incorporating research quote. And you have, again, a completed outline to use as an example. So you have the Full Sail library. Again, you're allowed to Google for information as well. Just make sure and trust your gut, okay? Or if you're unsure, reach out to me. You should be able to sense, like, yes, this feels like trustworthy information, or I've heard of this website, and information that seems, sketchy, right? You should be finding 3 quality sources. Again, 1 has been provided for you if you wish to use it, and you would just need to find 2 more. 1 should come from the Full Sail Library database. 1 can come from online. Once you have the information, it needs to be in APA format. Next week is going to be completely devoted to APA. I'm going to do walkthroughs on how to set up the paper. In other words, how to make it look like this in terms of paragraphing, in terms of the cover page, in terms of this guy here, which is called a header. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through all the steps of how to make the paper look as it should, as well as how to handle InText citations and how to create references. But for the outline assignment for this week, you do need to create InText citations and references. So I had 3 pieces of advice. 1, imitate the examples in the sample outline. Second is to go to projectapa.info. I'm going to type that into the chat. This was a site I recommend clicking on that link I just sent you and maybe even bookmarking it. This was a site created by a fellow Full Sail English instructor. And if you go to, for example, InText Citations, the very first guy here, formats of quotation and paraphrase, just follow the examples, okay? APA is mostly about just imitating the example. We'll talk about this a little bit more next week. It's a little bit confusing because in-text citations can always take two different forms, depending on whether you mention an author's name in your actual sentence or don't. But for now, I would just go to this page and, yeah, imitate one of them. Imitate this version. Or this version. Okay? Same thing for references. You can just imitate the examples here on my references page. You'll need an author's last name and first initial. You'll need a date in parentheses. You'll need the name of the article. You'll need the name of the publication or website. And then you'll need a retrieve from line. Okay? If it's from a general website, just stick in the URL. If it comes from the Full Sail Library database, you can take what is called the permalink. And on the right side of the screen, you can find the permalink here. Okay. I also don't mind, and this only applies to the Full Sail Library database, you have a cite tool. And it will give you usually the correct APA citation, but you have to fix mistakes. For example, the author's name should not be in all caps. Also, article titles have special rules for APA. You capitalize as you would a regular sentence. So the G in gimme would be capitalized because it's kind of like the first word in a sentence, but the S in sales would not. And if you look at the references page here, you can see, right? That's why all these article titles are mostly in lowercase. Because again, I'm following APA rules for capitalization, which is you capitalize just as you would a regular sentence. In MLA, you would capitalize all major words, right? So a small word like to, you wouldn't capitalize, but the S and C, the W and whatever, the Y and U, and so on, all those words would be initially capitalized, but not in APA. AJ mentions Purdue OWL. Yes, Purdue OWL is a great source too. If you just type in Purdue OWL APA. Okay. You also have examples of reference entries and in-text citations. Okay. Finally, your McGraw-Hill readings for this week cover APA. I think the McGraw-Hill sections on APA are terrific. I wish students would rely on them more. So you have all these sources, okay? Purdue, projectapa.info, McGraw-Hill, the sample outline. Finally, you also have this guy here, the Concise Guide to In-Text Citations. This is one of your downloadable assets. It's a little bit dense. This is something I wrote, but it contains examples. So again, just copy one of the examples, okay? And you should be fine. Here's the thing. For APA, for the outline, I want to see that you're mostly kind of on the right track for APA. Because next week's lecture is going to be completely devoted to walkthroughs of APA, I will show you step by step how to not just format the paper, but how to handle quotations and in-text citations. I'll create references in real time. Yeah, I'm not going to be super nitpicky about the outline, but I do want to see an attempt at APA. In other words, if the in-text citations look entirely invented, you're not following APA at all, that will result in a loss of points. Or if your references are, again, just completely made up, they're not following APA at all, I'll ignore like nitpicky things like if you forget the special capitalization rules or if indentation is a bit off, or I just want to make sure, I want to see evidence that yes, this person is making a solid attempt at trying to follow APA. But because we won't get into the specifics until next week's lecture, I'm obviously not going to penalize heavily, okay, for getting a few things wrong. So you know that expression, the good old college try? That's what I want to see. The good old college try at APA, even if it's not perfect. AJ says, out of curiosity, why is APA utilized as opposed to the more common MLA? First of all, I'm not sure MLA is necessarily more common. It's based on discipline. So APA, which stands for the American Psychological Association, but it's not just used in psychology. Education as a field uses APA. Most of the sciences use APA. And the humanities, so things like English, history, tend to use MLA. This is probably more information than you would ever want to know, but APA is much more focused on dates. That's why, for example, a typical InText citation might say, according to John Smith, 2014, blah, blah, blah. The date is important because if you think about it, papers on education, on science, they're probably going to be much more current. After all, if you're writing about Shakespeare, okay, a Shakespeare play that was written 400 years ago, dates may not be as important. There might be a critical essay that was written on Shakespeare, one of his plays from the 1950s, okay? But that research from the 1950s regarding contemporary advances in medicine or contemporary theories in education would probably be a bit dated. It doesn't mean that you couldn't reference it, but yeah, dates are very important in APA. So APA kind of stresses that information a bit more than MLA. I don't know if that makes much sense, but basically APA is discipline specific. Okay. But yeah, most of you are probably more used to MLA because students are often introduced to research in high school, usually in English class, and because English classes follow MLA. But I can tell you, APA it's not difficult. It really isn't. It might take you, an hour to get that foundation down. But once you understand it, I don't, it's just a matter of following rules. Okay. So for now, give it your best college try, and you will not be heavily penalized if, things aren't 100% perfect. Okay. Yes, AJ, that's it exactly. APA is much more interested in how current your information is. MLA, much less so. It's actually been so long since I used MLA, but yeah, I don't think in an MLA InText citation you mention a year. Anyway, this is pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's session. So let's open things up to questions, comments, whatever. If you are happy with what we've discussed and feel pretty clear about what you need to do in terms of the outline assignment for this week, you are allowed to enjoy the rest of your evening. And I thank you so much for attending. I'll hang out for a bit to answer questions if people have them, however, and to take a sip from my coffee, which has gotten cold. Okay, questions, comments, people? AJ says, I'm sure I missed where you covered the thesis statement. I mentioned it in passing because the week 1 lecture was much more focused on thesis statements. I did make a comment at the beginning to make sure that people, that you watch or attend all the lectures because the assignments in this class cannot be completed correctly otherwise. But I did quickly review thesis statements. Basically, whatever your chosen ad is, that you have to, just as my Jeep thesis identifies 3 aspects of the Jeep ad that I then discuss one at a time in my 3 body paragraphs: the ad's use of color, the ad's use of imagery, and the ad's tagline. You have to spot 3 things that are interesting in your chosen ad. And again, a big part of my feedback to your worksheets will be helping people if they struggle a little bit with that. It is difficult, I know. It's not. I don't think the average person is used to just looking at an ad and spotting things. So I'll definitely be helping on that front. Jonathan says, I'm stuck on that trial thing at McGraw-Hill. What should I do? Yeah, you're going to have to switch from from the trial version to the full version. Okay? Yeah, the trial will run out. McGraw-Hill registration is actually a snap. Okay, so here's the registration activity. Right? McGraw-Hill. It is as simple as, see, the department creates all these pages, so it's got videos, it's got long instructions, but really, it's as simple as this. Where are those documents? There they are. Okay, it's as simple as opening up this guy here, registration details, PDF, clicking on this link here, not copying and pasting it, clicking on it. And then this will take you to a page that looks like this, where you should see my name, the current month, February 2018, and then you just have to click, okay, and follow the steps. Now, you do need the textbook code that was emailed to you. If you did not receive a code, I would carefully check your inbox and junk mail folders to make sure that you didn't overlook it, but let's say you accidentally deleted it, or maybe you never received one. Then you need to contact FSO support at 877-437-6349. Okay, I've just typed that into the chat, but for people who are watching, that's 877-437-6349. Because it's FSO support that handles all the textbook codes. And listen, it's one of the most common issues that they deal with. So if you contact them, and I recommend do not send them a tweet or an email, call them. You should get a code within 24 hours. Okay, and then you can switch from the trial mode to the full mode. I mean, the other option is you could try to just bang out all 4 weeks worth of McGraw-Hill activities before the trial expires, because I do have the McGraw-Hill site set up so that the due dates are open for the entire month. Sometimes students get a little bit confused, and I apologize for that, because the FSO platform has firm dates for the McGraw-Hill assignments, but the McGraw-Hill site doesn't. But that's just because, yeah, if students want to work ahead, I feel like they should if they want to. Okay. Gaisha says, do you think you can send this recording out? Yes. It's being recorded right now. After the session is over, I'm going to embed it into the archive, and I'm also going to upload it to YouTube, because I know there were some comments. I mentioned this at the beginning of the session. Some people had trouble watching the first lecture because it kept stopping and starting. So I will also provide a link that will take you to a YouTube version of the lecture, okay? AJ says, I was wondering if how I'm supposed to incorporate pathos ethos into the thesis statement. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Actually, this is the only thing I don't like about that pathos, ethos, and logos video. Your 3 thesis points should not be pathos, ethos, and logos. Those are too broad. Okay, pathos, for example, refers to the appeal to emotion. But there are lots of ways in which an ad can generate emotion, right? Again, the use of the Rolling Stones song in the Call of Duty ad technically could be a move that's pathos related. I want your 3 thesis points to be more specific than pathos, logos, and ethos. And I just know from experience, those papers, they go down a very broad, very general path. I would much rather have you look at an ad and focus, like I did with the Jeep ad, on things like the ad's use of color, the ad's use of imagery, the ad's embrace of such and such theme. And again, I will, for the students who are still looking for their thesis points, I've been teaching this assignment for a long time. So yes, I have at the ready like 6, 7, in some cases 8 ideas to give you if you're still searching for thesis points. AJ says, I have no idea how to incorporate it. Otherwise, you don't have to incorporate pathos, ethos, logos at all if you don't want to. In my sample Jeep essay, I never mention those 3 terms. Okay, simply because it wasn't terribly important to me. I could have, but yeah, I had plenty to say with my 3 thesis points. The video on pathos, ethos, and logos, it's there if you want to draw upon that source as one of your research sources, okay? But no, the essay should not be as broad as looking at just pathos, ethos, and logos, and you don't have to feel pressured to fold in a discussion of those elements if you don't want to. You can, but you don't have to, okay? That's a good question. I hope the people who watch this are still hanging in there with this Q&A session, because I do see that. And I understand the confusion because we have that video on pathos, ethos, and logos, and yeah, it gives a false impression that that's what students have to do with their ad analysis. Just generally talk about those 3 rhetorical appeals and apply to the ad. But no, I push for a much more specific examination of the ad. Okay, no problem. Ask away. What else do I have to do? Actually, I have your worksheet still to grade. But no, I've got all the time in the world, and I will be up late anyway. Actually, you're the only one left in the room, AJ. So yeah, take your time. People are still watching this video. Hang in there. AJ is asking a final question, which is I have 2 points that I think are very important: lighting and use of space. However, I feel like they're better together. Can I do that? Yeah, possibly. Which ad are you writing about? Let me guess. Is it the panda ad? The World Wildlife Fund panda ad? Oh no, Call of Duty. Okay. Uh, yeah, if neither of those points feel like they're strong enough on their own, and you feel like they go together naturally and well, sure, you can combine them together. That's not an issue. And like I said, when I do respond to your worksheet, I have a whole list of things to consider regarding the Call of Duty ad. Again, the ads use of music is a popular one. Um, the ads kind of over the top. In other words, the ad in some ways is kind of like it draws upon, it's similar to a Hollywood trailer, right? This over the top kind of hyperbolic action. That's definitely a stylistic move that the ad makes. You have music, lighting, characters, and the use of space. Yeah, characters is important too, right? Like, I don't know what you mean specifically, but perhaps the diverse cast that it uses, right? Its choice to focus on everyday people, but everyday people, both men and women, people of various cultural backgrounds, people of various socioeconomic classes, as represented in the various professions represented. Yeah, like yeah, that's definitely a choice that the ad makes, and it's worth exploring, right? Yeah, because it's definitely the ad is it's trying to appeal to the very people who are probably going to purchase the game. So, um, women make up a larger percentage of gamers than people believe. So both men and women are represented. Um, and so, yeah, it's not, as I always say, no choice, no detail in an ad is accidental. So that choice is no accident either. The ad's use of celebrity is another one. Sometimes people focus on, right? Uh, but yeah, I think your 3 points are already strong. So, um, I'll probably give you the long list of various things to consider anyway, just because who knows, maybe you might want to swap out ideas, or maybe come time to write the essay, you might feel like, oh, wow, I don't really have as much to say about this as I thought. So you could always maybe switch it out if you need to. But otherwise, yeah, I actually think you can probably start moving on your outline, AJ. I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get your worksheet graded soon, but yeah, your thesis, the people who need help on thesis points usually don't have those specific kind of things listed. They need more guidance. So it seems like you're on the right path. Okay. Yep. You're very welcome. I'm going to go ahead and close down the session. Thank you so much. I will see you next Wednesday, sir. And to those who are watching, thank you as well. I am closing the session now.